His name was Jason, and today is his birthday. Hello and welcome back to my Halloween special. So today we're talking about another movie that fits for Halloween, and of course, since it's that day, I think no better movie to talk about than my favorite Friday the 13th movie, which actually isn't the first one. Today I'm going to be talking about Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So Jason Lives, by the way, I'm just going to call it Jason Lives, so and not keep saying Friday the 13th, Part 6, just to shorten it out so I don't have to constantly keep saying the title, so just Jason Lives. So Jason Lives is actually, when it comes to, reception, was actually number 2 in the Friday the 13th series. The only movie that actually did better than it was the first one, which was actually Jason's mother, who actually would be the killer in the first one. But this movie had a lot of things going for it. It actually basically was the role model of what Jason would later become from this movie to later on, and even into the crossover Freddy vs. Jason. When I say the mold that he would be used for the rest of the film, I mean this was the first film where he was used as a supernatural undead being. Now, I mean, it's interesting because technically in the first movie they said he drowned, but in part 2, technically he wasn't dead. In 3, technically he wasn't dead, and that was when we got his signature hockey mask look. And then in the final chapter, he was still presumed dead, thinking he died in 3, but he didn't die yet. He just got him unmasked, and then he finally did get killed there. And then in part 5, it wasn't even him at all, just somebody dressed like him. So, I mean, part 6 was actually where we legitimately got to see Jason, literally rise from the dead and come back to life. So, I mean, that's what I mean by first time using him as a supernatural undead being, because this is the time we actually saw him as a dead man come back to life. Before this one actually came out, Friday the 13th really was pretty much a failure. Every movie that came out after the first one was a flop. I mean, it really had nothing going for it. It was just basically the same thing, a gore fest with some sex scenes and people just screaming their heads off. So, I mean, when this one came out, though, it had a lot of elements that the other Friday the 13th movies didn't. This movie really wasn't just a horror movie at all. It was a horror flick, but it also had action and a comedic feel to it as well. It had the action element because it treated our main character, Tommy Jarvis, like the action hero, like the only one who can stop Jason, and then also used meta humor as well, like making jokes back and forth between each other. So it gave the audience a laugh here and there too. It really had a lot of elements that you probably weren't expecting, but probably these elements are what made it good. This 90-minute film basically focuses on 2 main characters. Everyone else is really just a side character and doesn't really play a big role in this movie. But, I mean, of course, the 2 central figures I'm talking about is, of course, Jason, one, and the second one is his arch enemy, Tommy Jarvis. I think if you are a Friday the 13th fan, everyone knows that Tommy Jarvis was Jason's arch enemy, without a doubt. But it's like they both had a point and a purpose for what during the movie. I mean, well, of course, Tommy Jarvis's purpose was to, destroy Jason's body so that, he can finally put Jason to rest, since he's been haunting him since he was a child. And Jason's purpose, though, was to get back to Crystal Lake, because he wasn't buried at Crystal Lake. He was buried in a cemetery, and his whole purpose was to get back there and kill anybody in the process. Of course, when Tommy tries to warn people, nobody believes him that Jason is back, and then when deaths start coming, they're all starting to blame him. So, I mean, that's where the action element comes in. The action hero element comes into play, to be more precise, because Tommy is the big hero, and no one believes him, and he's really the only one who can stop Jason, because he seems like to be the only one who knows how to. So, I mean, they both had a purpose in the movie. It wasn't just like the fact that Jason was going to go on a killing spree and just slash everybody in his way. He wanted to get back to Crystal Lake. So giving him a purpose probably made the movie much more interesting. Another great thing about this flick was that they didn't overdo really the gore, and also kind of dialed back down on the sex scenes. I mean, I don't know about Friday the 13th when it comes to the sex scenes here and there, but I mean, Friday the 13th is known for being a very gory flick. Well, gory flicks, to be more precise. And by dialing back down on it, it didn't make the movie really cheesy. I mean, all the other Friday the 13th movies that used a lot of gore in sense were just very cheesy. But, I mean, this one didn't have that feel whatsoever. So, I mean, that was good too. The only thing that I find bad about this really isn't the movie itself. It's the fact that every movie after it really didn't shine like Jason Lives did. None in the franchise, not even the Freddy vs. Jason crossover. Don't even get me started on Michael Bay's Friday the 13th. It's just sad that when they really finally got momentum for Jason, that they just couldn't shine again like they did with this movie. So, I mean, Jason Lives is probably, in my personal opinion, it's my favorite. A lot better than the first Friday the 13th movie, because the first Friday the 13th movie really just felt like like it had a Halloween feel, like it was just trying to play off John Carpenter's Halloween with Michael Myers. This one felt a lot more original for the Friday the 13th series. But, I mean, overall, I think Jason Lives is the best movie in the Friday the 13th franchise, and it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it before. And the last thing I think I'll give out is that Friday the 13th, probably what everyone remembers from it, is that it has one of the creepiest scores in a horror movie.